University of Minnesota, a taxpayer-funded school, just declared a whiteness pandemic. Forget inflation, illegal immigration chaos, or kids failing at math. The real crisis, according to them, is white parents existing. They're telling moms and dads to re-educate themselves and to halt the whiteness pandemic like it's some sort of disease that needs a cure. I mean, come on. You can't say men can't have babies, but then suddenly universities can diagnose an entire race as a disease. One study they cite surveyed mostly liberal white women making $125,000 plus a year, who apparently concluded that colorblindness, passivity, and white fragility are all part of the problem. Oh, and the project's funding comes partly from the National Institute of Mental Health. That's right, your tax dollars paying to label white families as systemic racism incubators. This is what happens when woke universities replace education with indoctrination. We all know they're not teaching kids to think, they're teaching them to hate themselves, their country, and their families. Parents, stop apologizing for who you are and stand up for what's right. They're calling it a pandemic, but I call it pride in my country, and I don't plan on curing that anytime soon.
So the real crisis, according to the University of Minnesota, is whiteness is a disease. Starting to sound familiar. So now all the roles are reversed? That's wow. That is shocking. Minnesota has definitely fallen into the pit.
Hi everyone, hope you're doing fine. Welcome to this beautiful channel. Thank you so much for clicking to today's episode. If it's your first time coming across my videos, my name is Milka. So today I'll be talking about a very interesting topic about a statement that was made by the University of Minnesota about whiteness pandemic, and it has provoked a lot of white folks. But I think this is something that black people or the black Americans have been talking about severally, but it has never been taken seriously. And I feel anytime somebody comes up with something to tell the white people, maybe to change about something, they're always like, you're becoming racist to us, or because they always deny the fact that they are being racist, or they are racist, or they are practicing racism. Because the university went further and said that for maybe you were raised in an environment, or you were raised by parents who normalized racism, and you grew up with some stereotypic information about the black community, they saying that it's your duty to learn what you learned, and you came to find out that it's a wrong thing. It's your duty to change some perspectives that whiteness carries. So that what shall be talking about basically in this episode. I have researched some clips. Some white folks kind of offended by what the university stated. So I want to let you watch these clips first, then I will come back with my commentary. And you can still tell me what you think in the comment section about this whole topic. Do you think the university, the whole institution calling out the white parents to take accountability of how they are raising their kids, do you think that it's a right thing to say, and it's going to help maybe the white America wake up? You can tell me what you think in the comment section. And if it's your first time you've come across my videos, it's a humble request. You can consider supporting my channel by just subscribing. So let's watch the clips, then I'll come back with my commentary.
Speaking of never heard of, the University of Minnesota's Child Development Program is warning about a whiteness pandemic and offering advice on how to reverse it. But first, obviously, what is a whiteness pandemic? Well, a page on the university's website says, whiteness refers to culture, not biology. The centuries-old culture of whiteness features colorblindness, passivity, and white fragility, which are all covert expressions of racism common in the United States. The webpage then offers steps for how to halt and reverse the whiteness pandemic. Explaining this, if you were socialized into the culture of whiteness during childhood, oh, not to worry, it's not your fault. But as an adult, it is now your responsibility to self-reflect, re-educate yourself, and act. A University of Minnesota spokesperson told Fox News Digital in a statement that the school is, quote, steadfast in its commitment to the principles of academic freedom. Joe Concha, I see that as we provide a place where any extreme viewpoint will in fact be offered, but not offering an association with that viewpoint.
Well
What say
said.
you?
Who wrote that? Joy Reid? I mean, where did this come? It's so racist. It's insane. A whiteness pandemic. It sounds like a disease that's in search of a cure. And apparently the only way to do that is to re-educate yourself by joining, according to the website, Black Lives Matter, which is only one of the most corrupt organizations around. So it's not a surprise this is happening in Minnesota, though. This is the same place where you could go into my son's 4th grade bathroom in an elementary school and find a tampon machine. So that's Minnesota for you these days.
Oh, my goodness. Whenever the stories get all like mealy-mouthed, I know exactly what it's all about. Because whenever you can't really understand this vague verbiage, you know that it's just fluff rather than rooted in reality.
Yeah, well, and Joe's right. I mean, it is blatantly racist, and it's not enough for the school to come out or the program to say, well, it's rooted in culture and not in biology. No, that's not going to cut it. Because imagine that these comments, these statements were made about literally any other race in the United States. This is only acceptable to say about white people. That's the fact here. And quite frankly, this should result in a civil rights investigation from the Trump Department, from the Trump Justice Department. This is a school that received $600 million in federal grants just last year. Wow. Why are we, the American taxpayer, funding programs like this? That's my question. So I would like to see the Justice Department get serious about rooting out these sorts of ideologies from American taxpayer-funded universities.
Yeah, because rhetoric matters, Carly. So them just saying, oh, it's not about biology, we mean it's this cultural thing to try to distance themselves what is blatantly hate language, hate directed at an entire group of people, won't cut it. It certainly won't pass legal muster.
Yeah, and if I read the story and didn't know what university it came from, I probably would have guessed University of Minnesota.
Or Oregon.
Yeah, right, exactly. Going back to the previous topic, Oregon as well, a state where the governor is somebody who famously said one man's socialism is another man's neighborliness. So state liberal with a capital L, or I guess S for socialism. You know, this is also, though, good news is that people do have choices when it comes to where they go to college, and it's why so many kids are now going to Southern schools, because they don't want to deal with this anymore. I am a little bit surprised about the lean-in still to the identity politics situation. You would think that most people of this political persuasion would have thought when they saw the results of the 2024 presidential election that that was a denial of that type of thinking. But in many instances, including the mayor of Seattle, who just won, they're leaning into it even more.
Yeah, Julie, remember during the height of sort of 2020 and that whole portion when people were paying other people to educate them and to re-educate them and to integrate them and do all those things that this thing was explaining, saying like, you know, how I need to essentially buy tools of how to comport with this very damaging ideology that essentially says no matter what you do, simply by existing, you are part of the problem. What's going on with schools?
I mean, it's the liberalism which exists in schools, which is basically making people apologize for being born the way they were. I mean, God forbid that you're born one gender. God forbid that you're born white. I mean, the fact that on the website it says if you were socialized into the culture of whiteness during childhood, it is not your fault. Wait, I'm sorry, what? So you're telling white people that it's your fault or it's not your fault for being born white. You can fix that. And then Black Lives Matter, I mean, I'm so glad you brought that up, is such a corrupt organization. They are behind so much crime in this country and so much unrest. And you're telling me that's the way to go? That's the positive influence that we want to teach our youth? Because this is where you're seeing it in universities and colleges and teachers teaching your friend's child that she is a they. I mean, it's insanity that the education system has this much power. And I do believe that the Trump administration should absolutely look into it.
Well, and one quick point with this program, it's not just geared towards college students, it's geared toward young children. Going off of one of our previous segments, it's geared towards parents of young children in order to help those children, quote unquote, develop a healthy white racial identity, which apparently the only healthy identity, according to this program, is one that hates yourself for simply being born white. That's incredibly toxic, and yet that's what the left wants to push on young children.
Ugh. Frightening.
University of Minnesota has a page on their website titled Whiteness Pandemic. This is crazy, guys. Which blames whiteness for perpetuating systemic racism in Western culture.
We posit that there is a whiteness pandemic behind the racism pandemic, and that this begins in the family system where young children are socialized into the culture of whiteness within white families. Our first recommendation is to remember that the whiteness pandemic is a pandemic. If you were born and raised in the United States, especially in a white family, then you've been raised in the pandemic, and you can play a role in halting and reversing this pandemic. We have two specific recommendations to that end. The first is for white parents to invest time in their own racial identity development through joining an organization like Showing Up for Racial Justice or your local BLM chapter.
Could you imagine if this was said in reverse? I mean, just think about it. I had to write it down just to show you guys how bad and how racist what she said is. She said, because there is a blackness pandemic behind the racism pandemic, and that this is being in the family system where young children are socialized into the culture of blackness within black families. Our first recommendation is to remember that the blackness pandemic is a pandemic. If you are born and raised in the United States, especially in a black family, then you've been raised in a pandemic. Wow, that's crazy. You can play a role in halting and reversing this pandemic. We have two specific recommendations at the end. The first is for black parents to invest time in their own racial identity development through joining an organization like Showing Up for Racial Justice or your local BLM chapter. Absolutely insane. Now, this is how they have it defined on their website. So it says, what is the whiteness pandemic? Racism is an epidemic that can also be considered a pandemic, given its large cross-national proportion and spread. However, there is another pandemic lurking behind and driving the racism pandemic, the whiteness pandemic. Wow. Whiteness refers to culture, not biology. The centuries-old culture of whiteness features colorblindness, passivity, and white fragility, which are all covert expressions of racism common in the United States. Naming the whiteness pandemic shifts our gaze from the victims and effects of racism onto the systems that perpetrate and perpetuate racism, starting with the family system. Wow. At birth, young children growing up in white families begin to be socialized into the culture of whiteness, making the family system one of the most powerful systems involved in systemic racism. Wow. 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 One of the biggest things that I noticed from the statements that they make is when they keep pointing out the family system. See, you don't hear them say racist family members or individuals that are racist that are close to you. They keep saying the family system. So at core, it's not about fighting against racism or fighting against whiteness, to be honest with you. It's a covert way to dismantle the nuclear family. That's why they keep saying the family system. They don't say racist individuals or a racist family member at all. This is absolutely garbage. Absolutely garbage. If this was said in reverse, I mean, when we say that blackness or black culture, when people refer to degenerate behavior and they also refer to those activities as black culture, people are called racist for that all the time. But now they want to refer whiteness as a culture, but not biology. But when black people get criticized of some of the culture within the culture that they claim, they call it racism, right? This is insane. The fact that this is on a university website is insane to me. I mean, I absolutely have no words. I just wanted to share it with you guys. Let me know what you think. Leave your opinions down there.
Did you know whiteness is a pandemic? Whoa, that's not a headline. That's the University of Minnesota's own wording, or should we call it Somali soda? The University of Minnesota's official website of the Culture and Family Life Lab, professors and graduate researchers describe whiteness not as a cultural discussion point, but as a pandemic that supposedly drives the racism epidemic. They even provide step-by-step guides urging white parents to re-educate themselves, adopt courageous anti-racist parenting, and follow groups like BLM and activist networks that claim white identity itself is harmful. But here's the truth. No race is a pandemic. No family is a virus. And teaching children that their skin color is a moral defect is not anti-racism. It's racism dressed up in academic language. This is exactly what happens when DEI ideology goes unchecked. A National Association of Scholars review found that over 70% of universities use DEI frameworks that divide students into identity groups, often assigning guilt, privilege, or oppression based solely on race, ignoring individual character, behavior, and choice. The University of Minnesota claims this is about justice, awareness, and equity, but redefining whiteness as an infectious cultural disease doesn't heal anything. It pathologizes millions of people, including the children they claim to protect. Academic freedom should foster ideas, not label human beings as epidemics to be cured. This is ideology masquerading as psychology, and parents are right to push back.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. I hope you have enjoyed the clips. For me, I think whiteness basically is not white people. It refers to some systems that were designed in a certain way to always favor the white people. As sometimes the school systems, or I feel like the school systems that erase the black history, that is still what I find to be referred as whiteness, because some institutions or some school systems are working extra hard to erase the black history. That means that whatever the black people went through during slavery, during a slave period, what they went through 400 years ago is going to be erased, and some white kids will not get to be taught these informations. They will maybe grow up hating the black Americans or having a certain attitude towards these people and not showing very well the impact that they have in the American society or American community, or maybe not getting to understand how these people got to be in the United States of America. Sometimes you find out that in some workplaces, they are always being favoring the white people. You find during a job interview, a white person will be hired, and it's not that they have better qualifications than the black person just because of her skin color. She gets automatically recruited in a certain opportunity, leaving the black person behind. That was what basically I myself find as whiteness, and this is what the institution is calling, that the people should start embracing change, should start taking accountability, not always oppressing somebody in order to remain in their comfort zone, or not like to make somebody feel offended so that you may not struggle in a certain way. Because when you be hired just because of your skin color and maybe the other person has better qualification than yours, that means you're not ready to improve, or you're not ready to better your qualifications in order to be hired the next time. Just because of your skin color, you feel that you are okay to go. So sometimes you find out that when you call the white people about to embrace change on these issues, they tend to be like, you're being racist on us, like no, whiteness is a pandemic. But basically the priorities that white people have, the way that the environment was designed to always accommodate the white person, to always favor the white person, that's what I feel like the university is calling out. These are the things that the black Americans have been trying to portray for the longest period, but nobody has ever taken them serious. But now the institution is coming out loudly and clearly, calling the white parents to be accountable of how they are raising their kids, of the words that they keep on saying in front of their kids while they are growing up. And I guess that maybe make a very positive change in the society, because these things do not like appear out of a thin, like they do not just appear automatically. It's something that was designed, it's something that was protected, portrayed until it got to a very large population of people. And sometimes you find out that a white person has done a certain mistake and the police will just say he was not mentally okay, or it's just okay, or they just brush it off. But when you find a black person has done the same mistake, you find out that they are being called criminals, or their incidence is turning to be a crime. So I really don't know what to think about this episode. For me, I generally feel like finally what the Black Americans have been pushing very hard to be like heard by people or to be taken into consideration is basically now coming out loudly. And that's what I have to say about this episode. You can tell me what you think in the comment section about all these issues. You can still, if you've liked the video, can consider giving it a thumbs up. And if at all you like this such kind of videos I do, it's a humble request. You can consider supporting my channel by just subscribing. So that's all I have to say about today's episode. Thank you so much for watching up to this point. Let's meet on the next time. Bye.